Hello again and welcome to The Math Show with Miss Condry. Today we have another exciting episode of The Math Show in which we will be talking about how to multiply a fraction by a whole number. I'm going to review 3 main strategies that you can use and remind you of a couple important things to be thinking about. You can find this practice on the first page of your second learning packet. And on that page, you will find several problems in number 2, where you are asked to find a fraction of a whole number. And so that's what we're going to be working on today. I'd like you to remember that we have some classroom norms. Even though you're at home, we still have to remember how to be mathematicians and how to work with others. So, first of all, you need to have a positive attitude. That's pretty important, especially when we're working on something that can potentially be challenging. Be respectful. Your families are trying to help you. It's not a time to get into an argument. It's a time to listen respectfully and share your ideas in a way that is kind. And also to remember to keep trying. The first one you might find is really hard for you, but the more you practice, the easier it becomes, and the more you become familiar with some of these strategies. Remember the word yet. I can't do this yet. If something is really hard for you right now, then it's going to be hard, but you have to give yourself more experiences and let yourself know that we're all on a learning progression, and the more you work at it, the easier it will get. All right, so let's begin. In your learning packet, in packet number 2, you're going to find these problems, like I said. And so I'm going to do an example one with you, and we're going to walk through 3 different strategies. Some of them are more efficient than others. And remember, what's important is that you are using a strategy that makes sense to you, and that you're also thinking about trying a strategy that's maybe unfamiliar or complicated, because even if it's unfamiliar right now, remember that word yet, you can't do it yet, but if you give yourself more experience and more time, it might get easier. I'm going to start by thinking about using a less efficient strategy to begin. Okay, so when we're solving a problem like 2/3 of 18, okay, and this is on your learning packet on that page, you could remember that that word of means times, okay, and you could use something like repeated addition, because we know multiplication really is just repeated addition. So if I think about it as 2/3 times 18, that means I need to do 2/3 18 times. Now, that seems a little bit complicated, right? Because that's a lot of times to do it, but it works. So you can just do 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3. I'm just going to do it 6 times here, and then you can do it the rest of the times to figure it out. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 2/3. Let's do one more group of 2/3. And then I just need to count up how many thirds I have. So here I've got 2/3, 4/3, 6/3, 8/3, 10/3, 12/3. Okay, 12/3. If I know 3/3 is equal to 1, then I know 12/3 is 3/3, 6/3, 9/3, 12/3. So it's actually equal to 4, and that was 6 groups. So I could continue doing that until I got 18 groups of 2/3. I'm not going to do that all on here, but you're welcome to think of this as repeated addition, if that makes sense to you. If you want to keep it as an improper fraction, that's also perfectly okay. But I'd like to challenge you at some point to come up with what the whole number or mixed number is when you get that number. Okay, like I said, that strategy is not the most efficient. there are other ways we could think about it. One of the models I really enjoy is thinking about numbers on a double number line. So that word of is really helpful to me because we're thinking about finding 2/3 of 18. So I can actually think about this on a number line, and I can put my whole numbers on the bottom. So if I think about this number line as going all the way from 0 to 18, I could even think about it as like 18 miles to my friend's house or something like that, if that's easy for you. And then I need to figure out how to find 2/3 of 18. So now I'm just thinking about breaking this 18 into 3 equal parts. So we'll call that 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts. So 1, 2, 3 thirds. So I could label those now. This is my 1/3 jump, my 2/3 jump, and my 3/3, or the full way to my friend's house if I'm thinking about that strategy. The problem is I need to figure out what 2/3 of 18 is. So I just broke this into 3 equal parts, which means I'm thinking about taking 18 and cutting it into 3 equal parts. If you think about that really quick, what is 18 cut into 3 equal parts? 6. So 6, if I skip counted, 12, 18. So I could do 6 here, 12, and now all my jumps are equal, and each third is worth 6 more miles or something, if you're thinking about it in that context. And this says 2/3 of 18. So that means that 2/3 of 18 is equal to 12. That can be kind of a challenging model for a lot of people, but I find it really helpful, and the more you practice it, it really helps you to make sense of what's happening when you're multiplying and how multiplication and division are related, because you have to use both of them in thinking about finding a fraction of a whole number. Which leads me to my next one. Those of you who are really comfortable with a double number line, or who are just really comfortable with thinking about multiplication and division, this strategy can be really efficient. So to find 2/3 of 18, if you think about that in the context of what you know about multiplication and division, you know that you're going to have to find thirds of 18. So to find a third of 18 means I need to break 18 into 3 equal parts. So I'm going to write that. Break 18 into 3 equal parts, and that's because the denominator means how many equal parts are in the whole, and for this the whole is 18. So break 18 into 3 equal parts, and I can even actually think about an equation that matches that. So I can think about it as 18 divided by 3, which equals some number, or I can think about 3 times some number equals 18, and that some number would be 6. Okay, so now I have 3 equal parts of 18, so each 1/3 is worth 6, and now I can use that to help me find 2 parts of them. If you watched the fraction video or the page 1 of packet 1 video, then you might remember me talking a little bit about the numerator and the denominator, and those are important things to know as you're multiplying fractions by whole numbers. Okay, so now since the numerator is 2, that means that I need to have 2 1/3. So that means I take that 6 and I need 2 of them because the numerator was 2, and now I'm left with 12. And the answer to 2/3 of 18, just like before, is 12. I hope that's helpful. If any of this was confusing, I encourage you to watch those parts again and practice, and maybe even try practicing all 3 strategies and find the ones that are clicking the most for you. Good luck.